Hello there, hi there, wild country woman. Slight technical hitch, as there always is at the beginning of these things. It's Leslie here from Wild Country Woman, and it is lovely to be here. I thought it was really helpful as we get to the end of the year. We're nearly there, we really are. We all deserve some kind of special medal, I reckon. But to do a little bit of a review, and as well as to start to think about the intentions that you might want to set for the year ahead. So I thought I'd take you through a very simplified version of the exercise that I've been doing in my Wildly Well Woman mentorship, as well as with some of my clients recently. So what I want you to do today is to take a bird's eye view. So you think about this year and all of the uncertainty and change. It's very easy for us to get stuck in the here and now, in what's happening right now, because everything else feels so uncertain. It feels really hard to plan for the future. So thinking about what's happening here and now, what you are and aren't allowed to do, for example, or the restrictions that you're facing or the uncertainty over your job, it's very easy to get stuck in the here and now. So our experience, how we might sum up 2020, might be based on one day, might be based on, if I were to ask you this, it's going to be based partly on your experience today. So what I want to do is try and help you take a bird's eye view, take a step back and look down on the year. A bird with a positive eye. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about magpies and how they pick out shiny objects in amongst the rubbish and collect shiny objects. So we're going to be taking a bird's eye view and looking for the shiny objects as a way of reviewing and reflecting on 2020. But I don't want to do that without acknowledging some of the challenges, without saying this did happen. And for many of us, this has been a really difficult year. Actually, I would say for all of us, because there's been so much uncertainty, because there's been a lot of change, and our brains don't really like that very much. They like certainty. And then we've also had to face the challenges of lockdown, the first lockdown when the schools were shut, when lots of people were furloughed, if you're working in frontline services, actually your work got really intense and you were dealing with uncertainty. I mean, hats off to all of you, to NHS staff, to teachers, to care workers, to social workers, supermarket workers, postal employees, everyone, delivery drivers, warehouse stackers who were under incredible amounts of pressure. So hats off, you did an amazing job. There was the challenge of homeschooling. Not my favourite, I have to say. There was a lot of fear and worry around, and as I said, that fear and worry can make you feel quite isolated. For many people, there was a real sense of loneliness, particularly if you're not living within a family bubble. There was a lack of social connection anyway, because we were just restricted couldn't see anybody, could we, for a little while. It felt a bit weird having a conversation with someone you knew if you bumped into them when you were out for a walk. We missed social events, birthdays were very different. We might have been really concerned about the mental and physical health of our family members who we weren't able to see. You may well have been ill and faced a long recovery, whether it was with coronavirus or anything around that. So there was lots, and there were concern about money and income and business. There might not have been the holidays. There's a lot going on. So that's just to acknowledge that there's been a really challenging year with lots of fear and uncertainty and overwhelm faced by many of us. But what we're going to do is acknowledge that and say, okay, we can see that kind of spread across the year in different ways, and then step back and take a bird's eye view. So we're this bird up above 2020, kind of flying through the year from January 2020, thinking about how you felt at the beginning of the year and what you might pick out of January and February and March. What kind of shiny objects could you pick out of those first months of the year? I can remember going to the Greta Thunberg March with my daughter and having lots of really empowered conversations around climate change and taking action that were really great. I think that was in March, so just before lockdown. I can remember some lovely. We usually start the new year in Ireland with family and going out for a lovely long walk on New Year's Day. That would be a bright spark for me. So there's those first months of the year where you're still kind of in the gloom of winter, but it might have felt very different. And then, but what bright sparks could you pick out of that early start of the year? And what bright sparks could you pick out from March, April and May, when we were in lockdown and when the world suddenly changed? For me, the spring was amazing. So it really felt like you could literally watch the bluebells unfurl and the plants growing in the garden and the leaves coming out on the trees. So being forced to slow down and really see and watch and acknowledge that, and going out for those daily walks that felt really strange, but actually meant that you could really connect with spring and nature around you. There were more butterflies this year than I remember seeing in years. I don't know about you guys. I enjoyed, another bright spark for me was the kids' creativity in play and in some of the projects that they kicked off themselves at home. I mean, there were plenty of squabbles and homeschooling was no walk in the park, but actually that would be those moments of creativity and a family, kind of enforced family time. There's definitely some bright sparks in there. So I wonder, can you pick out some bright sparks? And if you have a chance, just write them down. It's useful just to see them, so that when we're reflecting on 2020 in, say, at the end of 2021 or in 5 years' time, we can remember some of those positive things that came out of this slightly bonkers year. I really enjoyed, so one of my bright sparks will actually be online teaching. So I never thought that was something that I would be offering, particularly for the fitness classes. But actually, it was just brilliant to see so many familiar faces up to 5 times a week in lockdown, and to feel like still connected to that community. So even though it felt like something that was forced on me by this situation, actually it became a real bright spark too. The time and space that being in lockdown gave me to finish my women's health coaching qualification, to do a lot more reading and studying and looking at research online, that's one of my bright sparks as well. So how do you notice yours? What might be yours? And then as we went into summer, there was a change of pace as we came out of lockdown, but there was quite a lot of uncertainty about what that really meant. Maybe you managed to have some time away on holiday, or maybe it was that you just took time off work and organised more adventurous family walks and day trips. Maybe you were able to go out for a meal outside. Maybe you were able to meet a few more friends. And how much we treasured seeing friends after feeling so cut off for a while. And that would be a bright spark as well. Some of the gatherings that we had in parks and around, just long walks mainly, and picnics, and meeting up with my dad for a walk. That was amazing. Some of the other things that were incredible this year, and again, it will all depend on your experience, but we're seeing communities come together, seeing connections between people, feeling connected to so many other people around us because we were all going through the same lived experience. This same, our how we were coping with it, how our immediate personal experiences were different. I love this analogy of we're all in the same storm, but we might all be in a different boat. So, but it's a communal experience. And there was something about that felt like a bright spark for me. And And then, so as we came through the summer and into September felt like a little bit closer to normal. I don't know about you guys. We were referring to it as the new normal, and actually just the normality of a school run. Like, I appreciated that in a whole different way. I feel that one of my bright sparks of 2021 is actually going to be appreciating the really small things in the routine. I did also really appreciate my dishwasher because there was a lot of cooking, it felt like. I don't know about you guys. So in that bird's eye view, so you're in your positive magpie, flying over the top of the year and looking for bright sparks, looking for those things that you might highlight to take forward. That if you're telling your grandchildren about your 2020 experience, or you're writing your memoirs, what is it that you're going to remember positively about this year that will inspire others? And we might need to take a few minutes doing this, but taking yourself through that thought process of looking for the positive, of looking through for the bright sparks can be massively helpful, particularly if you are feeling quite challenged now as we get to the end of this challenging year. So let me know in the comments below if you can find your bright sparks and what those might be. Then we find our bright sparks and we do our reflection. We acknowledge the challenges. We acknowledge the fact that actually we've lived through those challenges, and that even though we didn't necessarily want them, that there is probably some learning in there. We've learned about our strengths, and we've learned about where we perhaps need more resilience and to work on our strengths too. So then another exercise is to do a little bit of a self-check, a little self-assessment. And those in the mentorship, or if you've done my Feel Good Factor challenge, we go through this in detail. I will be running the free Feel Good Factor mini course from the 4th of January again. So if anyone wants to do that, I'll put a sign up link below. But that little self-check is just a worthwhile kind of a point in the sand of marking a place of where you are right now. And you give yourself a mark out of 10. So for various different factors, and you give yourself a mark out of 10, 10 being optimum and 1 being definitely suboptimal. And you give yourself a mark out of 10 without judgment and without beating yourself up about it. But you give yourself a mark out of 10, and it's a way of helping you focus on what it is that you might want to do next. So you could start with your energy levels. So how much energy do you feel like you have first thing in the morning as you go through the day? Where 10 would be optimal and you're bouncing around all day, where are you on that scale of 1 to 10? And make a note of this, so energy levels, and make a note of why it is that you're choosing that score. So that if you were to look back on this in a few months' time, or even in January, you'll be able to know why it is you're giving yourself that score. How well nourished do you feel? So on a score of 1 to 10, how well nourished do you feel? And this is nourishment in terms of the food that you put on your plate, but also in terms of how it is that you're filling your cup with things that nourish your soul, I suppose. So, and that can be about community and connection. It can be about spending time reading or doing creative things, or time just on your own. Sometimes we just need that nourishment. So it depends on who we are as to what we need to nourish ourselves. But also a big part of that factor is, how are you nourishing yourself with the food that you put on your plate, that you put in your mouth, and not just what it is, but how you're eating it as well, how you feel about yourself when you're eating that too. So give yourself a score out of 10 and make yourself a note as to why you feel that way. How well rested do you feel? So again, a score out of 10, this is different to energy. So I've said how much energy do you have, and then how rested, it's linked, but it's different. So how well rested do you feel? And that is really about basically what you've got, kind of what you've got left in the tank. And this is about mental and physical rest, and your ability to kind of bounce back. So a lot of this will be connected to how well you're sleeping. How many micro rests. I talked about micro moments last week, and it's been really interesting hearing some of your responses to that. But do you get micro moments of rest during the day? So just the opportunity from one meeting to the next, if you're at work, to just take a breath and look out the window away from your Zoom screen. Do you get downtime between the end of work and dinner, or between dinner and bedtime? Is that downtime, or is it just always busy? So how well rested are you, and what score out of 10 would you give yourself, and why? So this is just us assessing where we are right now. We've done a bit of looking back. We're assessing where we are right now. And then I want to talk about physical strength and resilience. How physically strong do you feel? So that's fitness, yes. And how much exercise that you get, and how you feel when you go for a long walk. Or if somebody was to say to you, right, we need to walk 5 miles today, how would you feel about that? How physically strong and resilient do you feel? And give yourself a score out of 10. Give yourself a few notes as to why you've given yourself that score. And then moving on to mental resilience. So how mentally strong do you feel at the moment? This has been a tricky year for all of us. This, as I said, that uncertainty and fear, that plays to our mind monkeys. It plays to our animal brain, just feeling a bit scared all of the time. And if we struggle with anxiety, as many of us do, on and off through perimenopause, as our hormones go all over the place, then the added stress can actually really play on that. I talked last month in the mentorship about understanding the HPA axis and the stress response, and actually sometimes just understanding the stress response can help us work out how to deal with it. Next, I'm also really interested in how it is we can get ourselves out of sympathetic and into parasympathetic, and I'm doing some reading around that, which is quite exciting at the moment. So how do you feel about your mental resilience and strength at the moment? What score out of 10 would you give yourself, and why? Okay, so there we go. We've had a bird's eye view of the year behind us, and we're taking stock of where we are now. I'm doing this in a slightly quicker and less detailed way, but hopefully there'll be some nuggets in here that you can help. So now we've taken that bird's eye view, and we've taken stock of where we are now, and we're temporarily transforming ourselves into a seed. So here we are in the middle of winter. Midwinter is next Monday. And in the middle of winter, we're like a teeny tiny seed, or an acorn perhaps, in the dark, and we're there we are, we're full of potential, but we're not necessarily going all out on blossoming and going out there. I mean, this year there are no Christmas parties, so we don't need to worry about that so much anyway. And what I want you to think about is, in the winter, here we are, we're full of potential for the year ahead. And we're like the seed in the dark. In order for that seed to grow into the spring, it's going to need certain things to nourish and support it in that growth. And I want you to think about what you might need to nourish and support that growth. In order to do that, we need to know what we're growing into. Are we putting that growth into being a beautiful rose? Are we putting that growth into building a tree, or where are we taking that growth? So we want to grow and bloom in 2021. And we've got this seed in the dark right now. And at the moment, we don't know what that potential is. So we're going to take our bird's eye view. I'm mixing my metaphors here, I know, terribly. But we're going to take our bird's eye view so that we can fly forwards to see what we're going to grow into. So we're going to turn ourselves, a bit crazy, but turn ourselves back into this magpie, and we're going to fly forwards through 2021. So we're over January and February, which will probably be full of a bit more uncertainty again, into March and April and across, and when perhaps there are more vaccines out there, perhaps there's less restriction. We don't know yet what that will be. Taking ourselves forward through the year into, where did I get to? May and June, into the blossoming and growth of spring, into July and August and the summer, and maybe we'll get summer holidays. And then September and October as we go back into our routines around school and university. And that kind of lovely fresh start feeling that we get in September and October, and then into November and December, and the darkening and slowing down again. So we've flown ourselves forwards into 2021. And how do we want to feel? Our intention is to feel good, but you will all have a different idea about what feeling good is. So I want you to ask yourself, and this is where taking notes can be really handy. If you haven't got a pen, maybe come back and watch it later, or maybe just try and remember. So I want you to ask yourself, in December 2021, you'll be reflecting back on the year and you'll be saying, how do I feel? How do I feel? I feel good. How do I feel? What name would I put, or names or description would I put to how I feel in December 2021? Now, I acknowledge this isn't always an easy question to answer at all. So just take your time about this. And you might need to take this question away from this video and turn it off, or pause and just ask yourself, in December 2021, how do I want to feel? And then ask yourself, how do I know that that's what I feel? What is the evidence? Is it a feeling in my body? And if so, where? Is it who I'm with? Is it about something that I've accomplished? Is it about what I'm doing right now? What do I have around me in my life to give me the evidence that that is how I feel? And sometimes this is quite hard to put a name to. Sometimes it can just be a feeling that's quite hard to describe. But it will give you, my intention is for this to give you some pointers for where it is that you need to nourish and support your seed so that you can grow into that this year. So our little magpie has planted the seed in December 2020 and has gone for a fly forwards in time. It's a pretty amazing magpie into the end of 2021. And where is that magpie? Is it sitting in the branches of a tall tree? I mean, a tree wouldn't grow in a year. I do know that, but you know. Is it sitting in the branches of a tall tree? Is it sitting in an abundant garden? Is it sitting by the sun in awe of your accomplishments? I would love to know. So do share your comments below. But also think about, in order to be able to reach that goal, how do you nourish and support your seed? What do you need to put in to make sure that your energy, your nourishment, your physical and mental resilience are there in order for you to blossom into a seed, into a beautiful plant of some kind, or just beautiful, wonderful you, and accomplishing things that you want to accomplish in 2021. So I hope that's useful. I hope that you might get a nugget or two of something of inspiration for the year ahead out of that. And if you would like to join me, I'll be doing this in a little bit more detail, a little bit slower, in the Feel Good Factor Challenge that starts on the 4th of January. And I will put the link in to this below, so where you can sign up. That's a free mini course. Or if you would like to join me in the Wildly Well Woman Mentorship, it is now possible to join a waiting list. So I'll put a link in for that. And that's where I take you through as a group. It's a purely online program where we will take a focus every month on a different aspect of well-being. It's usually it's a month on nourishment, a month on movement, and a month on rest and restorative, taking restorative action. And there's a mix of education and support in that group. And it will start again from the week beginning the 4th of January. And the week beginning the 11th of January, we will have our first 5-day focus, which will be on blood sugar balancing. And you get a Pilates class every month and access to fitness class recordings as well if you need inspiration online to keep you moving. So trying to cover all of your bases of well-being. And then there's a live coaching call once a week in which you connect with me and with others to help you consider what's been good. So if you would like to find out more about that, I will put that in the link below. But mainly what I wanted to do was hopefully give you a moment to think about reflecting back and looking forwards into 2021. So I hope you enjoyed it. Drop any comments you might have in the boxes below, and I'll respond to you if I can. And have a wonderful Wildly Well Christmas, whatever that looks like for all of us. And I'll see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye.